there, welcome to the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. I'm Nat Ryan. Today in the kitchen, we're going to finish off our homage to pumpkin for the month of October by making Nat's Nutty pumpkin pie cookies. Now, yes, these cookies do have nuts in them, but is an optional thing to put in. So if you cannot eat nuts, do not put nuts in. If you want to put things like baking chocolate chips or score chips or butterscotch chips or anything like that, you can. You could also put raisins or craisins. You could also put like shredded coconut if you do that, or you can just leave them completely plain. They're delicious anyway. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you to do something for me. Can you please do me a favor? Like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. It's much appreciated. So what I like to do first is get my pans ready. Now, I've got 2 cookie sheets here, and you can either grease them or you can cover them with parchment paper. I have parchment paper, so I'm going to use that. The reason why I have 2 pans is that what I like to do is get some cookies baked on the one sheet. They're baked, then they come out of the oven to cool a little bit before putting them on a cooling rack. And while they're cooling on the baking sheet for just a little bit, I put the next pan in the oven to get started. So I have kind of a rotation and kind of like an assembly line system going, and that works really well, and you'll bake off the cookies a lot faster that way. Also, just to let you know that when you're baking cookies, you may or may not know this, that you should only put 1 pan in at a time in your oven. And the reason why, you don't want to put 2 pans right beside each other in the oven. They're almost like touching. You don't want to do that, because if you do that, the cookies don't cook as evenly, and you get some that are cooked and some that are not, and some burnt on the sides or whatever. And so your pan needs to have air to go all the way around it and have that space. And if it doesn't, your cookies don't cook properly. So that's why doing 1 pan at a time in the oven and leaving that space, but getting 2 pans ready so you can do your assembly line system and bake them off a lot faster. Okay, let's get going on the actual cookies. So in a large bowl, the first thing we're going to do is take some vegan margarine. Okay, so I've got it already measured out in my measuring cup here. We're going to put that into the bowl. Okay, get as much of that, so that amount. And then we're going to take some sugar. Okay, now I've got brown sugar. If you don't have brown sugar, I like using brown sugar for this. But if you don't have it in your house, you could still do this recipe just using white sugar. But I really like using brown sugar for this. Come on out. There we go. Like a big old heap. And we're going to mix those 2 things up. And we're going to cream them up together. So that can take a little bit of time, because, you know, and I'm going to probably need that other... Here, another spoon, because just to scrape off this spoon, I love a short-handled spoon. Like, just has a little handle. I don't know why, but I like a short-handled spoon better than a long-handled spoon, because I feel like I'm closer to what's happening. I don't know. My hand's closer to it. But, you know, I would get in here and actually do it with my hands if you weren't watching me right now, but I might. It's a possibility. Okay, so we're going to cream those together as best we can get. I kind of just like rub them together so that they kind of combine that way. Okay. If your margarine is really hard, now margarine typically isn't, but if you find that it's too tough, you can always, before you add it to sugar, you can always put it in the microwave for, you know, 5-10 seconds, just a really quick one, just to soften it up a little bit before you add it to the sugar and be mixing it with the sugar. Okay, so that is pretty well mixed. Just let me scrape this off of my spoon so I'm not losing half of it here. Okay, there we go. So that's pretty creamed together. As you can see, it has like a consistency like that. And now we're going to take some vanilla. Now mine is a clear vanilla that a friend brought me back from her trip in Mexico. So it's like a... I'm getting roux on it too, so I'm actually going to have to buy just old plain vanilla soon. Okay, so I'm going to add that in, mix that up. Now, remember, they're pumpkin cookies, right? So where's the pumpkin? Okay, here it comes. So a cup of pumpkin puree. Now, this is pumpkin puree that I made at home. So yeah, I roasted a pumpkin pieces and I made puree out of it. So here's about a cup of that. So we're going to put that in there. Now you can use canned pumpkin as well. That's perfectly fine. So canned pumpkin is going to be a little darker and it's going to be a little less liquidy. So, you know, it's going to be a little bit, you know, more thick in a way, right? I'm going to get that mixed up together. Okay. All right, so that's pretty well mixed, as you can see. And then we're going to set this aside. Okay, so in a separate bowl, we're going to take flour, quite a bit of it in there too. I mean, there's quite a bit of flour in these. We're going to take baking soda. And we're going to take some spices. Now, there's cinnamon, ginger, and nutmeg in here. And quite a bit of them. Like, it's quite flavorful. These are going to be really pumpkin pie-ish, definitely. So we're going to mix that all together. Okay, so there we go. Try to get it as uniform as I can. Whoop. Get some on my floor here because I'm just... Okay, so then we got that. So that's pretty well mixed. Now, I'm going to grab my other bowl from up here. Okay, so remember that with the wet ingredients here. I'm going to give it another little go because there we go. Now we're going to add the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. So in goes. Set that aside. Whoop. That's why I usually wear an apron because I am messy in the kitchen. I make lots of noise and I make lots of mess. So we're going to mix that all up together. And it does smell kind of like a pumpkin pie filling. I mean, it really smells pumpkin-y for sure. Okay, smells like that pumpkin spice, you know. Personally, you know, all this thing about in the fall with the pumpkin spice lattes and everything. I like lattes. I just like vanilla lattes. I'm not really. I don't really like to have my pumpkin spice in a latte or in coffee or other beverages. I like to have it in cookies or pie, and that's how I like to have it. But to each his own. Okay, so that's pretty well mixed, as you can see, and it's got a good cookie dough consistency. And then we're going to add some other things to it, or you could just leave it plain. Okay, so to the cookie dough, what you can do is add nuts if you can have nuts. If you cannot eat nuts, and for gosh sakes, do not put nuts in this, okay? But I'm going to put on, these are some chopped walnuts. And I've got, you can use chocolate chips, any kind of baking chips. I've got some score chips here. Now, when you're putting in any kind of baking chips into cookies, make sure, check the package before you even buy them. At the store, check the package to make sure that they don't have ingredients in them that you can't eat, okay? Because there's a lot of cookie bit or baking bits and things like that. A lot of them do have milk ingredients in them. So here's the dough. I've added that. And then we're just going to move this off to the side for 1 second. Take my parchment covered baking sheet. Move stuff out of the way. And what I like to do is I take 2 little spoons and I just take like a heap there and I will put it on the pan here. I want to put it somewhere where you can actually see it. And we are going to cover that pan with cookie dough. Okay, so I've put like 8 blobs of cookie dough on this cookie sheet. Now, you can probably fit more than that. But what I like to do the first time I put the first pan in the oven is I like to put just a little bit on the first pan because I want to see how much this cookie dough is going to spread. Because until you know that, I mean, then you can kind of gauge your distances. So for my first pan, I always do it this way and have it just like separated, not too much cookie dough on there, and see how they bake off, how much it spreads. Okay, so now I'm going to put that first pan in the oven to bake. And I'm going to put it like crosswise in there. So it's like the long way across. And that's what I'm going to do with it. Put it in the oven and wait for them to bake. Okay, so you can see that these cookies, they've been baked. They did not spread that much. So the next time I put a pan through, I can get more cookies on here at one time. The other thing I like to do is when I'm checking them to see if they're done, I just like go like this, and then toss it over and see, okay, this is a bit warm, but toss it over and see if at the bottom it has got some browning action. If it does, then they're done. Just let them cool, and then we'll put them on the rack to cool completely. I've got the next pan in my oven already, and they only had 8 blobs of cookie dough as well, but I know that this next one I can put a good 12 for sure, no problem. So what you have here is some delicious cookies. They are gluten-free if you use gluten-free flour blend. They have no milk ingredients in them, and they don't even have egg, so they are egg-free as well. They are a beautiful cookie, slightly crispy on the outside, nice and soft on the inside, delicious, great with a glass of milk, wonderful, in the middle of the afternoon as a snack with tea or coffee as well. Absolutely wonderful cookies, very easy to make. I really hope you enjoy them. And thanks so much for joining me here at the Dietary Restriction Kitchen today. See you next time. Bye for now.